And before you think that I'm offending you, note that I already said thank you to you, right? I already said thank you. I said thank you to you. So don't get offended. One of the narratives that I see being pushed by people that the reason that the negotiations yesterday fell through was because Vance and Trump are crybabies that wanted to thank you. And clearly Zelensky said thank you many times. And so I figured since I'm coming on to test this out, we'll talk about this narrative. First person that I see that's sort of guilty of this sort of rhetoric is Sitch from Adam and Sitch's show, or Sitch and Adam show, whatever the hell it is. Sitch puts out this post where he's basically like, Vance was Zelensky just made a normal observation and Vance was crying about it and blah, blah, blah. And when I pointed out that framing's wrong, as we talked about yesterday, that actually what happened was you have an antagonistic press that at the end of this, where everything was pretty swimmingly, asked Trump basically, why don't you criticize Putin more? Why don't you just straight up say that Putin's terrible and you're aligned with Ukraine? And Trump's making the obvious point, look, if we're trying to enter negotiations as a neutral party, we're trying to be hospitable to both sides so that we can have a productive conversation, because the most important thing is having a peaceful resolution to this. And then Vance chimes in and says, and the last guy said all sorts of bad things about Putin, but that didn't really do anything, did it? Actions matter, not words. So it doesn't matter if we're here saying Putin's evil, Putin's the worst, he's terrible. Like, that doesn't accomplish anything. We're trying to have a diplomatic solution. That's it. And it seems that Sitch is implying like, well, these were lies that could not be abided by. Or if not lies, a statement that could not be abided by Zelensky. Why not? What was said there that couldn't be abided by? The point Vance was making is, you should be thanking us instead of publicly criticizing us and calling us out in front of the media. That's what you should be doing. If you had objections, you could have brought them up behind the scenes, but you didn't. Instead, you agreed to the deal and then waited until you were in front of the cameras and then decided to interrogate me and basically say that you and your boss's plan is shit. It's not literally that he's saying that you need to say thank you. It is that Vance is saying that you feel entitled. Yes, I know Zelensky has said thank you, and he has gone to places like X and said thank you. Saying thank you and then going in front of the press and saying, fuck you, JD, your plan's fucking stupid, doesn't show gratefulness. It shows a sense of entitlement. That's step one. Step two as to why this is a non-starter is because the plan of the United States and the Trump administration is, one, sign the mineral deal so there will be something that is beneficial to the American people. Second, to proceed with a ceasefire. Third, then negotiate long-term terms to try to make sure something like this doesn't happen again. Zelensky is publicly in front of the camera saying in a photo op to celebrate step one of this three-part plan, steps 2 and 3 won't work. And you're stupid for trying. That's what he's doing. You make this point clear, and what does the left say? Right back to the same fucking talking points. Actually, Zelensky said thank you in the past. Right, but let me explain.
What? Yeah, but he did say thank you in the past. He said thank you. So J.D. Vance is a child. He said thank you in the past.
Hey, I just want to say to Captain, my captain, thank you, man. Captain, my captain, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for being here. Thank you so much for being here and helping support my channel. It really means a lot to me. Also, Captain, my captain, I think you're probably a fucking sack of shit that doesn't do anything productive for anyone in the world. I think you're probably a fucking coward. I think you're a weak man. I think you're probably someone that demands other things do things because you're a narcissist and you think that you're entitled to more than what they are. I think you're someone that judges other people for not doing what you yourself can't do. I think you're probably a piece of shit that thinks everything you do in life is acceptable, but when other people do the same thing as you, you criticize them and say that that's wrong. I think you're probably a coward that's unwilling to fucking debate your ideas because deep down, you know that you're not capable of defending them, so you have to rely on stupid fucking cliches like he said thank you. That's what I think. And before you think that I'm offending you, note that I already said thank you to you, right? I already said thank you. I said thank you to you. So don't get offended, you fucking piece of shit, you fucking loser, you entitled scumbag. I said thank you, right? I said thank you that one time, right? Just so we've cleared that up. Got it? Good. I'm glad we've all cleared that up. Hey, you're welcome, Captain, my captain. Same thing with Sitch. Oh, Vance was crying, blah, blah, blah. When I point out, like, you're wrong, actually, it was Zelensky that Vance was okay to do what he did. Sitch says, that doesn't disagree with what I said. That doesn't disagree with what I said. Right, what I'm saying is your framing of the situation is him crying. No, you can't argue with what I said. Let's go real quick. And I only bring Sitch up because I actually like Sitch, and I feel this is indicative of the sort of rhetoric that's going on around his. Sitch says, Zelensky was there to sign the mineral deal. Vance starts crying about Zelensky giving the slightest pushback and not saying thank you enough. Trump called off the agreement, not Zelensky. So many people are either lying or hallucinating about this, trying to make it about Zelensky wanting to fight forever. Big Cope. I put absolutely wrong. Trump and Vance were answering press questions. Real quick. It's clear that P.S. Sitch is blaming Vance and Trump. They're the ones that started pouting and blah, 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 crying. I said absolutely wrong. Trump and Vance were answering press questions. Zelensky jumped in to question Vance and imply Trump and his plan would fail. This was a conversation we had during negotiations behind closed doors. Vance correctly called out how disrespectful this was. If you can't see this, you're lying or hallucinating. And then Sitch says, what you said doesn't even contradict what I said. Well, yes, it contradicts your entire framing of it. You're blaming Vance and Trump, saying they act childishly and were crying about something, and therefore the collapse in negotiations is their fault. But he's like, well, technically what I just said and his thing don't contradict. Then he says, since you didn't actually contradict my original claim but said I was wrong, I'm not sure whether to put you down as lying or hallucinating. Maybe the third option of hurt feelings. Check out that cool little picture he put of J.D. Vance looking emo like he was crying. I said, your framing was that it was Vance's fault. Mine is that it was Zelensky's. You're being intentionally obtuse because you can't defend your framing. But fine, I'll play your game. You said Vance was crying. Show me on the video where. I didn't see tears. You're either lying or hallucinating. So what Sitch is doing here is he's playing this game where he's like, I didn't, you need to say what literally I said was wrong, just not my framing. Not my framing. You need to say literally what I said was wrong. I said, okay, if that's the game, you said he was crying. Show me the tears. You didn't read my post. And I said, yeah, I read it. You said Vance was crying. Admit you were wrong. Wow, your feelings are hurt to the point you're now actively troll lying. Rather to admit you misread my post, LOL. I see why you have a lot of sympathies with Vance. I say, I notice this is a non-answer. Initially, I didn't argue with the specific words your post had, but argued with the overall framing. You couldn't defend your framing, so I argued I couldn't, and so you argued I couldn't prove your post literally wrong. I can only prove the framing wrong. I then showed where your post was literally wrong. Now you can't defend it and resort to deflections. My feelings aren't, I put not shirt. My feelings are not hurt at all. Yours, on the other hand. That's the games that they play. Oh, so he'll say, yeah, you saying actually it was Zelensky that was disrespectful, started to interrogate Vance and imply that him and Trump's plan would fail. And Vance correctly said, hey, that's disrespectful. You could have brought this up behind closed doors. You're not even really saying thank you in this meeting. Seems you feel entitled. Now, Sitch can't defend his position, so he goes, technically both those things could be true. It's just the framing. Right, we're both generally outlining what happened in the sense that Trump and Vance answered a press question. Zelensky started to ask Vance questions. Vance responded back. But the framing is everything. For example, then if I was to say between my interactions of Sitch and me, or if I said this, if I said Zelensky, Trump and JD were being excellently articulate and answering this hostile, arrogant media person's question. And then Zelensky started pissing his pants, crying, pouting that, oh my God, it won't work. Please, you must do more. Because he's a coward who's just fucking whining and says that he wants more than more and always feels entitled. And Vance correctly stands up and says, hey, you're being disrespectful. This should have been brought up in closed door. Do you think for a second Sitch would say, yeah, nothing wrong with that statement. Yep. Oh, he would just argue against the framing of it. The framing is everything.